With the X-Men's 19-year-long film series ending with the exhaustingly underwhelming Dark Phoenix, I think it's safe to say that Fox's run is over. The future of X-Men movies post The New Mutants is uncertain. There's speculation that the X-Men will be a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, rubbing elbows with Thor and Doctor Strange, or having another standalone run. Here's my wish list for what the upcoming X-Men reboot needs. Before I start, this is my opinion. Feel free to comment what you want or don't want to see in the new movies. So here are the things I want to see in the reboot. Number 1. Do not take place in the MCU. Just hear me out on this. I know this is something a lot of fans want to see the most, but it could contradict the theme of X-Men. X-Men is about certain people who were born with superpowers, aka mutants, and the rest of the world both fears and hates them. Despite all the hate they've received, the X-Men continuously fight for equality. It's a message about combating prejudice with justice. I don't think this would fit in the MCU. Where did mutants come from? Why haven't they been acknowledged before? The existence of mutants could not have been kept secret for this long. Widespread hate crimes would have been committed. Some would say if mutants aren't born in the MCU, then they could be created in secret Hydra labs, like Quicksilver or Scarlet Witch. The message is more meaningful when they're born mutants. And if they are set in the MCU, would mutants be feared like in the comics? In this world, Spider-Man and the Hulk are adored by everybody. These two can be mistaken for mutants. The closest the MCU came to being like X-Men is in Captain America: Civil War, where Scarlet Witch accidentally killed innocent bystanders during a mission. After this, she's recommended to not go out in public again due to everyone fearing her powers. The thing about X-Men is, people will hate you just for having powers. You don't have to do anything to be reviled by them. If there's a horn on your head, you will get death threats. I have this concern that X-Men's themes of anti-prejudice and mob mentality would be botched like Spider-Man's themes of responsibility and growing up fast were. There's a strong chance the X-Men would be treated like celebrities, and civilians would ask Gambit to take selfies with them. X-Men works best as a standalone world. Number 2. Bring the classic suits back. As of 2020, why would you not want to use these suits? They're some of the most colorful, dynamic outfits in the history of comic books. Don't repeat what the movies did and substitute them for bland black suits. I hate these suits. They're lifeless, uninspired, and they all look the same. I know why they did that. Batman and Robin was 3 years old at that point, and omitting color seemed like the way to go at the time. But it's okay, because they respectfully call back to the classic X-Men suits by making fun of them.
You actually go outside in these things? What would you prefer? Yellow spandex?
I am sick to death of this cliche, and it has persisted for years.
You look like a damn fool.
Hell no.
What's worse is how the later films tease us about suits that call back to the comics. Granted, 2013's The Wolverine did this in a deleted scene, but still. With current superhero movies utilizing suits in the comics but modernizing them, the same can be done for X-Men. And there's a good reason why the X-Men should wear these suits even though their identities aren't secret. Everybody fears mutants. So with the X-Men dressing like superheroes, it's a way of saying we use our gifts to do what's right. There's no need to be afraid of us. Desaturated suits that make them look like government agents? No. Don't shy away from being colorful and astonishing. Give Cyclops the Capcom blue and yellow. Number 3. The Heroes. I'm going through each big-time member I want to see in the reboot. Not everyone will be talked about. I mean, look at this list. This video would be hours long if I went through everybody. Let's start with the X-Man who should be the leader. Trustworthy Boy Scout Scott Summers is undeniably fit as the X-Men's leader. Disciplined, cooperative, and optimistic. The team could go through episodes of stress and anxiety, and Cyclops' unwavering determination would keep them focused. Being in a relationship with Jean Grey would add to the stress for both of them, which the two would get through together, as a couple, making them more relatable to the audience. His signature power is his concussive beam, firing a Hadouken from his eyes. He also has the spatial awareness, allowing him to pinpoint where to shoot his blast, so it can bounce around wherever he wants. And he's an expert in hand-to-hand combat, which the movies rarely show. And about the movies, Cyclops isn't exactly a fan favorite, and I think they're a reason why. We weren't supposed to like Cyclops that much. They wanted Wolverine to be the MVP, not Cyclops. It doesn't help that Cyclops got less screen time with every installment, and in X-Men The Last Stand, he was killed off in the first 20 minutes. Thanks, by the way. James Marsden did the best with what he was given, but the Donut Lord deserved better. Watch Comic Book Girl 19's video on how the movies got him wrong. The exalted member of X-Men who can utilize the weather to create wind, rain, ice, and lightning from her fingertips. Storm has this royal disposition that attracts respect from everyone around her. No surprise there, since her mother was a princess in a Kenyan tribe. And wow, the movies dropped the ball on that. She was just there without the energy. In the reboot, recognize her as the force of nature incarnate. It could also explore her claustrophobia, and she needs to have her African accent too.
Storm, mistress of the elements, commands you to release that child.
The wise telepathic Charles Xavier, who will never give up on a future for both mutants and humans. The only changes I want for Professor X are for him to be more vocal in defending mutant rights. Put him in an interview with Senator Kelly, and give him his big clunky hover chair. I like that chair. In his debut, he looked like an ordinary guy with big feet, but he's more known as being blue and hairy, and I prefer this design. Beast is intelligent enough to make vehicles and gadgets for the X-Men, and strong and agile enough to get in on the action. He's one of the most well-mannered members. We can see him giving emotional support to the other X-Men. Make sure he's always blue though. Sorry, Nicholas Hoult. Gambit is one of the coolest members. He can store kinetic energy into something like cards and throw them as if they're exploding shuriken. A lot of creativity can be put in his powers. He can grab a few strands of grass and launch them like knives. Undoubtedly the suavest X-Man with his bad boy demeanor. You can surface the romance between him and Rogue like in the comics. They start out by flirting with each other, and it'd be cool to see them fighting side by side. Speaking of, Rogue can absorb anyone's life force, as well as the mutant's powers. The movies got that right, but let's face it, we all want to see her fly and have super strength. Where these powers came from, that's a bit tricky. In the comics, she took Carol Danvers' abilities of flight and super strength. Since Captain Marvel's in a separate universe, Rogue would have to get them from other mutants. Her personality definitely needs to be more upbeat. She was too quiet and gloomy in the movies. Rogue in the comics is way spunkier than that, and she never had a big moment in the movies. She never got to kick ass. That was so disappointing. She's one of the most popular members. You need to deliver on that. In the movies, Iceman's been treated as a minor. He's one of the original X-Men, show some respect. He needs to be cockier and more exuberant, plus utilize his powers more. The bridging ability that lets him move swiftly, do that more. And have him shielding his body in ice, have fun with his powers. Colossus is the Russian gentle giant of the team. His body is composed of a nigh-unbreakable metal skin. Make him like how he was in the Deadpool movies. They got him down to a T. And he finally got his Russian accent.
How's blowing up Bill's character?
Poor Jubilee. She's been in a few of the movies as an extra and nothing more. X-Men Apocalypse was the worst offender. She was the narrator in the Mansion's TV ad, and she only used her powers once in a deleted scene, like in X2. Jubilee can shoot balls of electricity out of her hands and change their size and redirect them. In the animated series, she was the link to the audience in showing what the life of a teenage mutant is like. The world of X-Men was opening up to this naive kid. Let's put her on screen for more than 30 seconds, okay? The first female member has the dual power of telepathy and telekinesis. The movies focus more on Jean's powers than her as a person. It's as if her powers are the only important thing. She's always afraid of the beast inside her. Her powers are too much. The Dark Phoenix is inevitable. The movies want us to be terrified of the Dark Phoenix, but we need to care about Jean first. That way, the Phoenix Saga is more impactful. Show us Jean Grey, the hero, before you get into Phoenix territory. Have her tell us her opinions on all this. Show us her relationship with members besides Cyclops, Wolverine, and Professor X. Jean first, Phoenix much later. And don't make the Phoenix a part of her psyche like in X-Men The Last Stand. Leave Deadpool out of this. He already has his own film series. Deadpool breaking the fourth wall would take us out of the drama. I'm sorry, but he works when the narrative revolves around him. And no, I don't want him to replace Stan Lee for cameos. I know we've been feeling a lot of Wolverine fatigue for the past 20 years. He's the main character in most of the movies, having his own trilogy in fact. Despite that, I want him back, under 3 conditions. 1. Get the body right. Wolverine is 5'3". As much as I love Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, he was too tall. You don't have to be 6'2" to be a superhero, and he needs to be hairy, like this hairy. 2. Don't make him the main character. You've been in the spotlight long enough, buddy. And 3. Don't make him the leader. Wolverine is not a good leader. He's short-tempered, rude, and has a series of outbursts. Don't use Wolverine as the moral compass of the team. He's not a Leonardo. He's a Raphael.
Others traverse the rigid security.
And finally, my favorite X-Man. Nightcrawler is the well-meaning, heroic German mutant who follows his Catholic beliefs to be selfless and forgiving. Even though he looks like a demon, his devilish tail is prehensile, like a third arm. He's regarded as the nicest member, and I wouldn't have it any other way. His power is teleportation, one of the best, and the movies put this to good use. While I am satisfied with how Nightcrawler was executed in X2 and X-Men Apocalypse, there has been some missed opportunity. In the comics, he and Wolverine are good friends. Show that more. And another thing, swords. Nightcrawler loves swords. Let him go to town by chopping robots like an Ultimate Alliance. And don't give him scars. Number 4. The villains. Before talking about the villains, I gotta say that Magneto can wait. He was in most of the movies, and he's been performed phenomenally well by Sir Ian McKellen and Michael Fassbender. Let's have the other bad guys get their 15 minutes of fame. The giant hive mind government-funded robots programmed to incarcerate or even kill mutants. The movies had this metaphor of law enforcement crossing the line in terms of protecting citizens. You see, there's a good reason for us to break into your homes and detain innocent children in electrified containment cells. It's for your safety. The Sentinels are that times 100. They're King Kong-sized tanks. The reboot can have commentary on the US government spending billions on military weapons instead of healthcare or education. The Sentinels would do a ton of damage, injuring or killing human bystanders in the process, and senators would justify the destruction with some bullshit like, "We won't be safe until every mutant is dealt with. They're to blame." They were at their scariest in Days of Future Past, with Mystique's DNA enabling them to copy the powers of other mutants. But I want to see them as the bulky automatons they were in the animated series. Being robots, the X-Men can go all out, and it wouldn't be too violent for the kids.
Well, howdy ho. Robots, you know what that means. I can be as hardcore as I want and it'll still be PG-13. Delicious ultraviolence.
I want these to be the villains in the entry movie in this new series. We saw the X-Men fight the sleeker Sentinels in Days of Future Past, but I want to see them against the inferior classic-looking ones. I do like the prototype designs more, but it's not the same without Storm or Cyclops there too. Charles Xavier's stepbrother, who turns out isn't a mutant at all. He found a mystical ruby that channeled its power into him, making him ultra strong and eternally energized. He never needs to rest or eat, and his helmet protects him from Charles' psychic powers. For the reboot, write him and Charles as stepbrothers. The family drama could up the ante, and don't make him say the line. You know the one. To sum it up, Sabretooth is Wolverine on steroids. He looked appropriate in the first movie where he was played by Tyler Mane, and he needs to be portrayed by some guy whose build is like that. A cyborg who's on par with Sabretooth. We saw her next to as Colonel Stryker's brainwashed bodyguard played by Kelly Hu. I want to see her in full control of herself, not someone's puppet. And give her more lines. She had only one in that movie, and she needs to be a cyborg. the arsonist mutant who can manipulate fire, and he's not shy about it. He's one of the loudest, most chaotic villains. We saw him in X2 and The Last Stand, but his outfit should scream fire. And I'd love to see him and Iceman fight with no holds barred. Their little scuffle in The Last Stand was weak. Have Iceman slide around and make Pyro summon a dragon-shaped flame to chase him. A Russian serial killer who was forced into experiments that implanted metal tentacles inside his body. These tentacles let him drain energy from his victims. His body armor is durable enough to withstand Wolverine's claws. He's as vicious and cold-hearted as he looks. Omega Red is the only villain in this video to not be in live action, aside from a cameo in Deadpool 2. Like with Wolverine, there's been a lot of fatigue with Mystique. But in the first two movies, she was perfect. She was this intelligent, cold, acrobatic assassin that can resemble anybody. She expresses herself without saying much, and you get what she's thinking. Starting with First Class, however, Raven has become the most super specialist person ever! She's Charles Xavier's stepsister. She's the reason the Sentinels doom mankind. She's the hero Days of Future Past. She's Storm's hero. Everyone looks up to Raven like she's the Messiah. It's all about Raven, 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 Katniss! Jennifer Lawrence is the main factor why. Nothing against her, she was way too famous to portray Mystique. All the subtlety and nuance has been sucked out. It's times like this where it's best not to cast someone A-list. He doesn't have any powers, but Senator Kelly is arguably the X-Men's most dangerous foe. The X-Men tell the public that mutants are decent people who deserve equal rights. And then you have bigots like Kelly who mislead everyone into thinking they're criminals.
And there are even rumors, Miss Gray, of mutants so powerful that they can enter our minds and control our thoughts, taking away our God-given free will. I think the American people deserve the right to decide whether they want their children to be in school with mutants, to be taught by mutants.
He's unquestionably the most realistic villain. If mutants were real, there would likely be a discriminatory senator using propaganda to control the masses out of fear. His speeches could encourage angry mobs into assaulting mutants or even the X-Men themselves by throwing rocks or glass bottles at them, and they can't fight back with their powers. If they did, then Kelly would use that against them. So the X-Men use dialogue and reason to show them the light. True, it's not as flashy, but it's human. And finally, number 5. Mind the timeline. The X-Men films may have the most warped, convoluted movie timeline I have ever seen. The prequels have a hand in this. They brought up more and more continuity errors, and a good number of characters aged like they're all Wolverine. The gap between Dark Phoenix and the first movie must have been the most stressful 8 years imaginable. Some prequels add layers to the timelines of their respective franchises, while others break the continuity and tell you not to think about it. Continuity is important. Putting that much attention to detail is praiseworthy and rewarding for loyal fans who stuck around for so long. The team of writers need to have one unified vision for these movies. I have a soft spot for most of Fox's X-Men movies, but I don't want them to be the definitive X-Men films. We can get movies that embrace the source material, give kids a solid first impression of X-Men, and longtime fans a worthy movie series that they deserve. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and comment what you want to see in the X-Men reboot. Till next time.